Young Reporters Disclaimer. Before we get started, a quick note. The views and opinions you'll hear on the Young Reporters are just those of the producers, our guests, and our friends, and don't represent the policies or official views of the Orin Edson Entrepreneurship Plus Innovation Institute. And remember, the Young Reporters podcast is for entertainment purposes only.
Matchmaker Communications 101, in collaboration with Arizona State University's Edson Entrepreneurship and Innovation Institute, presents The Young Reporters. The Young Reporters chase down ordinary people doing amazing things in the greater Phoenix community and beyond. These inner-city young journalists take their classroom on the air, a class about ethics, commitment, loyalty, and teamwork. When you're on The Young Reporters, be prepared to talk about things you never expected. And now, let's go into the classroom.
We called it a classroom because this program started in 2011 when we went on the air at KFNX 1100 AM with our first show with kids that we'd been in the classroom for 2 years, once a week, an hour and a half, once a week, to get them trained up to host their own radio show. And I wasn't going to be satisfied until I knew that they could run the show and do a great job and not embarrass themselves or anybody else. And from show number one through, I think we ended up doing probably about 250 shows with the kids, and we did in that same period with 250 adult shows. And it was just, and that's the same show we're doing to this day, except now we're doing it in the podcast studio. But we're very, very proud of what you can do with kids, what kids can do given a chance to shine. And everybody in this room has a story to tell about something related to that. Everybody here's either been in the classroom or has Corbin, when he was doing his film Bite Size, just watching the trailer for that film it almost brings you to tears just watching the trailer. And that's 12 years old right now, but it's powerful, it's timeless. And so I'm talking about Corbin Billings over here to my right. And so he might not have been in the classroom, but it was operating like a classroom when you were doing that film. Something was going on with those kids that I saw that become your primary stories in your storytelling adventure there with the kids struggling with weight, I guess it was.
Yes, well, that was particularly rooted in my own healing journey too, because I had grown up struggling with my weight, and so to return as an adult and then be shadowing in a cinema verite documentary style, fly on the wall, just following the day in the life of these four kids in very different circumstances across America, but ultimately trying to tell a story of hope. Because this is actually interesting. Joan has written a children's book called I Choose Happy. And Joan, you consolidated all of the color matrix into a child's book, minus the personality assessment. But really, it comes down to our choice. What do we choose in life that leads us towards a place of fulfillment and joy? And then what are the choices that we make that isolate and then ultimately make us miserable? And that's where food becomes a comfort. And I intended to tell stories that would otherwise go overlooked, and this correlates right with Jen's mission with Arizona Ascent. In this specific circumstance, we were in Mississippi, California, and Florida. But we ended up being totally surprised. The children that were given every single type of advantage being sent off to a weight loss boarding school that cost quite a considerable amount of money, facing relapse after graduating from that very controlled environment versus a kid that has type 2 diabetes and is 13 years old. All he wants to do is play pee-wee football in the 7th grade, getting a motivational encounter with his favorite football player and then taking that steam into football in 7th grade and then being able to successfully reverse his diabetes. Spoiler alert, it's just that I was surprised because I'm always rooting for the underdog. I think as human beings, we are constantly searching for something that gives us hope. And I think that the main way that we reach that these days is through innovation, through the spread of information, through conversation.
You know, in your trailer, I think one kid you're talking about, even in the trailer's only like 2.5 minutes. I just watched it earlier today. The kid who basically could be run over by anybody early in the trailer, makes a beautiful stop on a guy who's charging at him for like a defensive tackle or whatever the position was, and it comes through in your trailer. I can't wait to see the whole movie.
Yeah, visual storytelling. I mean, there's a classic mantra that we live by in filmmaking, which is show, don't tell. So anytime that you can do that. But this is real life. And once again, this speaks to the nature of what's valuable about having a new media team and cinematic production at Startup Central. It's essentially like the past 8 months that I've been working there, it's like a nature preserve. I'm like a David Attenborough on the field documentarian, and I'm set up at, instead of waiting for the praying mantis to climb across the branch, I'm waiting for the people that are building this robot bartender to finally get to the point where it can pour a drink, which we finally successfully hit that milestone this past Saturday.
We saw we thought before
you saw the
we could do that,
prototype.
right?
Yeah, I needed to see the thing. I've been waiting 8 months to see this robot pour a drink, and finally I saw it serve somebody water and serve somebody beer, and now we're getting into the point where it can do all of the cool additions and actually get into mixing cocktails. Now, that's a wild world to go for and process to document. I feel very privileged to.
How did they find you? You find them, and is that your primary thing now? Are you done with filmmaking for a while, or it's incorporated into everything you do? Where are you at the moment?
Yeah. The visual storytelling will always be a part of me. But right now, I have a 3-year-old. And so a part of that is also creating that stability as a father. And so moving out of I feel very gifted that I was able to make movies, music videos, music, and go through all of those different aspects. But now, this isn't just a 9-to-5 for me, I will say, though, because I believe in the greater mission of what this place is doing. I believe that there needs to be a reindustrialization of America. I believe that innovation needs to return domestically and reshored. And I also believe that we are inching every day closer and closer to a dystopian future filled with Terminator robots and AI drones. And it's the kind of stuff that keeps me up at night. To be a part of a collective that is intended on creating a future that restores sovereignty to individuals, puts power back in the hands of builders and creators so that we can have drone detection systems that are able to intercept radio silent or UV drones. So it gets to a point where we can come together and we can make certain decisions today that make a better world for us tomorrow, years from now, as opposed to making the easy decision, which most of the time is just thoughtlessly entering an AI prompt these days.
When we had the larger group from Startup Central in the studio a couple months ago, it was right at the time when El Paso Airport was being shut down for a couple days because they had drones coming from who knows where that were all around the airport. And Startup Central at that time, because they're really good at drones apparently, they were involved with conversations regarding that. And they also made a point that they're young and they're idealists and they want to be on the defensive side, I think, and maybe that'll change at some point.
No, I don't think it'll ever change. We really, as a company, had to come to a juncture where we said, well, are we going to make machines of war, and then what does that mean? And I think that all of us felt, this speaks to the color green and the color matrix, but there is a belief in doing something that actually makes the world a better place, as opposed, and let's say, safer instead of better.
Paula, how do you relate to all this? By the way, part of his trekking around the world might have covered some of your home region down in Chile. Is that right? Chile?
Yes, I'm from Chile.
So how does all this, what you're hearing, we got about a minute and a half maybe in the segment, how does all this relate to you and your upcoming event and your view of the world as a dancer who performed at the Center for the Arts, that's what it used to be called, and has danced all around the world? How does all this relate to you?
Well, I think as I was listening to him talking about the collaborative part of it and then just having more of the human nature coming into play, and having less AI, or in a way, my project or what I do, I think, has a lot to do with the younger generations and building them and creating them into some great performers. So I've been teaching in the Valley for about 25 years now, even while I was dancing as well. And once I retired, I kind of felt like I needed to do something more for the community and for myself too. So I was a little bit selfish, I have to admit, at first. And so in Chile, when I was in the company there, it's very common in South America and in Europe to have gala performances. Now, gala performances, the word gala means festival. So here, I think in Phoenix or in Arizona in particular, gala means a bow tie event or something very different than what it really is. And so what would happen in those performances when I was 19 in the company is that they would bring all these incredible stars from different companies around the world to perform in one show. And when I came and danced here at Ballet Arizona, I was always expecting a gala performance at some point, and nothing ever happened. And so then I retired, and there's still no gala performance happening. And so I thought, okay.
So you're it then, is that right?
I need to.
You're the one that's doing it?
Yes.
And so before you got in the studio, we had a little conversation about like old Phoenix versus new. So once again, you've just walked right into the conversation.
Well,
You represent New
am.
Phoenix.
I am, yes, and I'm very proud to say that the concept of my gala performance is actually pretty historic. It's the first of its kind in the nation, not just Arizona, because what I do is I bring in students in ballet and contemporary between the ages of 12 and 19, and we choose the top students from every school around the Valley, and they come together and they meet in the studio and they get created a piece on them, and I'll keep talking about it later.
We will pick that up, Holly. That is a great description of how you fit in with this New Phoenix concept we're talking about. We are the older version of Young Reporters, great group in the studio who I haven't even introduced in show number 2. We'll get to that shortly, so stay with us. We'll be right back.
And we're back. My name is Jennifer Conrad. I'm the CEO and founder of Arizona Ascent, and we're back with this great panel here today. So I have a question for you, Savannah. What drives you when you're working with the indigenous population? What are some of the things that you're seeing with that population, and what is their hope for the future, and what's the hope for them?
What drives me is reconciliation. You know, we live and work on native land.
You said reconciliation?
Reconciliation, yes. Because I believe that unless we acknowledge the truth and unless we acknowledge the harms of the past and really do something to heal, there will not be healing. So really, that's what drives me. Justice, reconciliation. And what I'm seeing, the hope is every student would say, I want to take what I've learned and do something for my community. You know, that is the hope for every student. They want to build their community. They want better health. They want better access to education. And they really want to use tech as a force for good for their communities.
You've had some success stories. Can you describe Sealaska? I mean, they seem to have a very high regard for what I think I watched the interview you did with Sealaska.
Mm-hmm.
Describe what it is that you've done. That's a long way. Obviously, that's a virtual thing you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's amazing that you've connected tribal communities, or at least you're working with 2 distinct tribal communities.
Yeah, there are 23 tribal nations in Arizona, and there are 575 tribal nations across the United States. So at Codify, we worked with young adults from several tribal nations. We also have, Phoenix has one of the largest populations of urban Native Americans. So we worked with about 20 different, with students from about 20 different tribal communities. With Sealaska, the partnership has been great because some of their tribal members or shareholders in Sealaska. One of our students, lived on Prince of Wales Island. She had to connect to our program through Starlink. And that was really cool for her to be able to do that, to connect and really learn. And one of the things that we do really well is our training is virtual. It's done over Zoom, but we only have 5 to 10 students. And we work with our students 3.5 hours a day, 4 days a week, over a period of 12 weeks. So what happens is that it's an environment where trust is built, where it's a nurturing environment. Every student feels comfortable in that. They're building relationships from other young adults from other tribal communities. We also do some work around trauma. We bring in an Indigenous therapist to talk about historical trauma, intergenerational trauma, and really try to destigmatize reaching out for mental health supports. So really, it's community. We build community.
And you bring a lot of tech people in front of your classroom, basically,
Yes.
virtual classroom, and they basically do a presentation for who's ever in the class that day.
Well, yes. So we bring Indigenous professionals to our classroom and other tech professionals, who really have a heart for Indigenous communities. The Indigenous professionals, they share their story, their journey into tech. And many of their stories are very similar to our students' stories, because our students have high school diplomas or GEDs, and they don't have degrees, and they're doing this as a way to enter the tech industry. And so it really, for our students, it is a shot in the arm. It's motivation, it's inspiration. If someone from my community has been able to do this, then so can I.
Jennifer, back to you for a second, and I'm going to back to Paula and her event coming up. But one of the things that caught my attention was at Startup Central, at the event that Al and I went to, that you ran this panel of amazing people that were there that night, and obviously was 6 or 7 people on the panel, or 5.
I think it was 5 actually, 5 on the panel.
And so the thing, again, you talk about storytelling and all that. Jennifer, she operated that like a pro. It was just a panel that was like, it wasn't about all the good stories. It was about, okay, what went wrong and what did you learn, whatever. It was pretty interesting the way the panel was set up. But I found out the follow-up is that you were sort of a last-minute fill-in as the leader of the panel. That wasn't something that you expected to do that night, right?
No, that wasn't something I expected to do, but I knew I was going to have to step up. And that panel, just to let you guys all know, I handpicked that panel. Every single person,
wow.
I handpicked that
Great
panel.
Group.
And how I did it was I took all their backgrounds, I analyzed it. I'm like, okay. And I was able to figure out like the correlation of like what we were going to talk about. And everybody of that panel had AI in the background of that, and started to be able to craft the questions. Well, we were able to craft, talking to them. It's like, hey, what are some of the things that you are seeing, and give us some of your best questions, and then be able to put together that panel on that. And my background is I'm a history teacher. I'm a historian, and my job is to facilitate a conversation and be able to pull out the best in that. And so it's like, so I consider that panel, those are my primary sources. And so listening and be able to then and to guide it. And so that was.
So that panel for you was like doing a history. You're regarding them as your source books or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's how you viewed it.
Yeah, it's how I viewed it. Is I was able to sit and listen and be able to help kind of steer the conversation. Because even when we do Arizona Ascent, everybody that we feature in the magazine, in the beginning, I handpicked every single person that was going to be in the magazine. I was able to listen to their stories. And then when I do a podcast episode with them, I'll sit down, I'll do my background research, but I also will just let the conversation guide. I let them talk. And I'm like, I see every single person and their story, especially in tech, because everybody in tech, and even in, in nonprofit work and all that stuff. And I've interviewed some nonprofits, and I've interviewed some really great people. but nobody knows the background, how they got there, what was their motivation, what was their inspiration. And I sit there and I listen to them and I'm like, okay, like this is my primary source. And I everything I do in my questioning, it's all historical method. It's research. It's be able to kind of pull that story out of them. And that's kind of the basis of Arizona Ascent, is those untold stories.
You did a fabulous job of doing that. And Paula, you kind of do the same type of thing as you're assembling your guests from around the world to come to the gala. You did this. You've already had the first one, right?
Yes.
The first event?
The first one was last year.
And did you draw, you kind of like handpicked or found out who was available? How did you do that the first go round?
Well, I have two other partners in the project. My company's called the Hartley Dance Project, and Studio R Ballet, the owner of Studio R Ballet, Robin Elo, is my other partner because she facilitates the studio space for the kids to rehearse in, and also is financially invested as well. And then the third partner is Paul Sequist from Swansea Productions. Paul Sequist and I go back to when we were 8 years old. We were classmates in school in Chile. And our paths, I moved here to the States, and he moved to Berlin. He became one of the biggest entrepreneurs when it came to dancing as a dance agent, and he's also a novelist as well. So he has managed and has handled and has created many gala performances in Asia and South America. So he was my go-to when I decided I'm going to make a company where I make a gala, and I'm going to make a company where I'm going to get the best kids all together and perform, and then we'll bring the best stars. And so when I called him and I said, hey, this is what I want to do, he said, I'm in. I'm totally in, because this is great concept. So he's the one that contacts the stars, and he runs it by us, and I go, yes, please, this is who we want, this is who we're thinking about, and then we figure out a team of stars that come. So last year we had 11 stars. This year we're going to have 11 as well. This year we're having couples from New York City Ballet, American Ballet Theatre, Dutch National Ballet, Le Grand Ballet Canadien. So they're coming from all over the world. And so I think one thing that I do...
It's going to be at the Orpheum again? Or?
At the Orpheum again, September 5th, so save the date for September 5th. The one thing I have to really showcase for you to understand is that for these kids coming together and being the opening acts for these stars, the experience alone of walking backstage, of seeing them, of interacting with them, of taking warm-up with them, they're icons. And so for them, the experience is incredibly memorable. And they never, to this day, the kids from last year are still talking about it. And most of them auditioned again for this year because they wanted to do it again. But I don't know if you know this, Bob. This year, the ballet piece is in 3 movements. And the music is going to be created and composed, has been created and composed by Mr. Alan Ripper right here. So the ballet piece that the kids are performing is to music by Alan, and it's a fabulous piece. That's all I have to say, because his music is great. So the kids look incredible.
I'm so grateful that you guys are working with me on that. I just love this, like, to pieces. It's
well,
cool.
My whole point is to use Arizona talent, to recognize all the talent that comes from the state, not only just in dancers, but in music as well, and choreographers. So the 3 choreographers are from here. They've choreographed, they teach here, they're well-renowned. So it's all about bringing the community together.
And so just like you guys, there's sort of the core of Startup Central and kind of combining different elements, and early in your process still that you're adding new components. I introduced Phil to Paula about a year or so ago, maybe a little bit farther than that. And Phil, being Phil, he recognized something that caught his attention, and he got involved with Paula to help guide her through some of the things that she needed going forward, especially.
Yes. I'm so grateful to you, Phil. You are such a huge supporter, and I really am very thankful for that.
It's it's an honor to be part of it. It's the preservation and promotion of the art form as well. In Phoenix, it's giving opportunity to the kids on an international stage, and so for the audience. And by the way, everybody needs to go, because it is. My wife and I went last year with some friends, and it is like the elite type of performance that you will not get in your lifetime, and it's all on one stage at one time in a beautiful setting at the Orpheum. It is literally like you have to mark your calendar. but it is, it's an art form that's difficult to see persist, in a generation or generations that where I think arts is just kind of waning in interest. And I think the work that it sounds like everybody in this room is doing is providing a platform for whatever your audience is. Sabina, for providing a platform and opportunity and opening up doors for the indigenous people, for Paula, the arts community and ballet, and preserving the dance for the young population of Arizona, and I think internationally as well. That's what I think that the power of collaboration is. So it's great for me to be part of your project, Paula.
Thank you.
Well, again, I really appreciate the fact that Phil, with as many things as he's got going, is still open to connecting up, and he is the blend of old and new Phoenix, taking the best of the old and bringing it with the best of the new, and Phil is like the go-between on this stuff. It's great. We are the Young Reporters, back with another segment momentarily. Great job of bringing us in, Jennifer. Thank you for doing that, and stay with us. We got, I think, 2 more segments.
The Young Reporters is back. My name is Corbin Billings, and I'm sitting down with an incredible panel. So happy to be here today. And I have a question for the man sitting across from me, Phil. Yeah, when it comes to Old Phoenix, New Phoenix, what's the most exciting thing for you when you look at the landscape of the city right now, not only when it comes to the arts, but sort of the tech scene, and where do you hope it goes?
Jennifer, you made reference to Phoenix being the center of the universe, and I think that phrase is thrown around quite a bit. And I kind of think it is, like when you think about geographically where we are with California flanking us, and all the migrations here from the Midwest and the up north of us. I don't know why it's become what it is, but it's very exciting to see all these companies coming here, all the building that's happening. Now I know that comes with some consequences, and I think to answer your question, Old Phoenix versus New Phoenix, if you look at the growth pace of this city, over the past 70, 80 years versus what's happened here in the last 3 to 4 years, it is exponential. What's ahead of us? It's a little frightening, isn't it? Because that pace, I think we are ill-equipped to handle right now, and the New Phoenix, I think will have to adjust in some way. I don't know what the answer to this is because I'm not a city developer, but this city is going to have to adjust to this inevitable path that we are on, and there's going to be sacrifices made.
Are you talking mostly congestion, water? What are you referring to?
I think both.
Both.
I think let's not get political here, but the confluence of politics in this state as well. There's a lot at stake in this state, in Phoenix in particular. I have kids, I have teenagers, one in college, one in high school, and this is something they're going to grapple with. Is this thing that we're giving them. And I don't think the state is ready for it, really. Like, if you just see what's happening right now, I'm not saying the state is fractured or anything, but there's just so much growth happening here, and it is outpacing the rate at which people can comprehend it.
Corbin, what was your drawback here? You're not a native here, are you?
No, born and raised in Oklahoma until I was 18, got accepted to USC, moved to California, and I always said that I would live in California until it sucked. And in 2020, it sucked. And so I beat the Joe Rogan migration and ended up buying a property and starting a family. And thus a whole new chapter.
So Phoenix became like a viable option for you then?
Yeah, it was actually, all of my family is now in Arizona, and we were all over the place when I left for high school. And so it's really a miracle that my family, even the extended family, is really all back here in state. So whether we're in Flagstaff or Phoenix. And so I will be here in this city until my son is 18. So, that's going to be a fun ride and many summers to not look forward to. And then many winters to cherish. I was just up in Prescott, and that's one of the things that I love about Phoenix specifically, and I know that Jennifer will understand this. Like, there is a lot that's happening outside, up north, even obviously in Tucson down south, but there's so much that's going on in this state where you can literally drive in about 2 hours and be in so many different types of environments and circumstances that we were just up in Mayer this past weekend, and it is really nice when you're dealing with a lot of that urban density. It's almost it's the same way that I think about digital fatigue, that I get urban condension. No, that's not a word. Everything is so condensed in the city, and so then it feels like nice when we can escape up north and not only enjoy the colder weather but also the fresh air.
There's just, and I think, Phil, you made a comment about why all of a sudden this happened. I think what started it was that because I moved out here in the year 2000, but I've been vacationing here regularly since 1987. And my first trip out here was in 72. I'm aging myself in a big way, but that's okay. So in 72, my best friend and I were, and Joan, you really appreciate this, I was just graduating college, Bradley University, where we went. And we took a cross-country trip, kind of like an old Route 66 trip that took us down. We wanted to go to New Orleans and come across country. And coming through Phoenix, we were just on our way to California, except my friend had some relatives in Sun City. So what I remember of Phoenix in 1972 was Mr. Lucky's Bar on Grand Avenue. I remember old people in golf carts in Sun City, and a downtown that it was like the downtown in 1972 was the same tower that still exists that is the opening scene for the movie Psycho. And yes, the opening scene of the movie Psycho, and the downtown in 1972 was only 10 years after the movie Psycho, roughly. And so downtown was just nothing. There was no downtown, basically. And that downtown really didn't change until maybe the last 6 or 8 years, where all of a sudden downtown has developed from like nothing. So when you talk about the growth, it came fast. But part of what happened was people with big money from around the world, this was one of the 3, 4, 5, or 6 places that they had to have a home in, partly because of weather and partly because of scenery. And I think that was the initial thing that brought people from Canada and from the Midwest and all around the country. That's what brought people out originally. What happened? I think California housing prices is another thing that became a big factor, right, Corbin?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that, right?
I mean, I like to not include myself in the group of people that are Californiaing up Arizona, but I believe that around 2020 we saw a mass migration for obvious reasons, and then the property values since then have skyrocketed. I mean, that's all. It's just. What excites me is that Arizona, there's sort of a new approach. Let's say specifically in my world with media, there's a point where you start making films or any kind of media production in California, and it's become so ingrained in the culture there that it's exploitative on both sides. It becomes how much in all respects, not how can I help you. When I was making a documentary and traveling around America telling stories, it would be really different. And I think that's a reason for the decentralization of Hollywood as it's happened over the last 20-ish years. But really, like, it's too expensive to make anything in L.A. anymore.
Because why?
Oh, because they know that they can get away with charging for it. And so you've seen these other, sort of a decentralization of Atlanta, Georgia becoming a hub. Or you'd see a lot of film production in Texas that started.
Joan, you're shaking your head like you relate to this or what?
I totally agree with him.
Why?
When I found out that I had the stories of the black pilots that I do, and I think I mentioned it briefly in an earlier segment, I would approach people that could produce that, and they loved the idea. And I finally got to one guy who said, well, I'm really interested in doing it, but we're doing some other projects, and I can't really, I don't have the money for it. And I don't have time for you to raise the money for you. And he gave me a number that was way out of my price thinking.
And Corbin, is that part of what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, people don't understand how expensive it is to actually do a cinematic level production, because we live in a society where everybody has essentially a camera phone. in their pocket at all times. But in order to get that higher level where you could be on Netflix or be on HBO, that there's a certain quality that is expensive unless you have a tremendous amount of experience and just some resources that are built in. That's one of the reasons why I guess I'm valuable and seen as the asset that I am for Startup Central. Like anything that's coming out marketing materials that way I've touched. And it just try to lend my experience into it because there's a certain point that as an independent contractor graduating film school is like being helicoptered out into the middle of the ocean. They say there's land in some direction. They push you out and say swim. And there was a point in my late 20s, I just had to become an independent contractor that was a one-man documentary film crew. It is possible to do those things, but it does take the expertise. And when you have filmmaking, though, is at its best when it's a collaboration. But all of those people have
it's amazing. When you look at the list of people at the end of a film, it's a ton of people you got to pay, right?
Absolutely. And don't get me started on ballooning budgets of films, but I'm a big, strong believer in independent filmmaking because that's just another version of stories that need to be told. There are some really creative minds out there, and I was having this conversation today that basically the only genre that you can see new and inventive ideas being explored are in indie horror. Which is interesting because it comes with a lot of baggage attached to it in terms of the scary aspect. But in this idea that we would want to see a resurgence in whether it's print media in this style of Arizona Ascent or the arts, people actually showing up for the ballet and not being in the same camp as Timothée Chalamet, sort of disregarding these things. There's this opportunity for. I almost want to describe it as an analog human experience. It's a little bit more tactile, a little bit more real, and there's an authenticity and an emotion that I think is really counter to this age of AI, what I call AI slop. And it's like everyone is seeking to be perfect online. Well, that's actually extremely hard because we're all flawed humans. How can I use AI as an enhancement on my artifice or my mask? Just cover myself in that slop, and as a result, it takes away all of the wrinkles. With that, you lose all of the character. And one of the things that I found in being at Startup Central is that I am more engaged by the wrinkles than I am by the smoothness. When my title at Startup Central is Director of Branded Content, but I am affectionately referred to as the Chaos Coordinator because it's constantly herding cats. So yeah, the best thing that we can hope for is that this revival is hosted by Phoenix in part.
We are ending segment 3 of this second show. We got one more.
It's going really fast.
What a great summation for that segment. And great questioning all around. So stay with us. One more segment. We always have surprises here coming up. Thank you very much for listening. One more segment.
Hi, we are on the Young Reporters Show, and this is Sabina Rajasundaram. Joan, I have a question for you. I'd love to know more about your company here in Phoenix and the work that you're doing.
The company that we came out here with doesn't exist anymore, but it did change, and we decided.
She's now part of the Young Reporters, just so you know.
Pardon me?
You're now part.
Yes.
Now part of the Young Reporters team, just so you know.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank
you. I am part of the Young Reporters, the older version of the Young Reporters.
Good one.
But the company that we formed after Carpe Diem, we had Carpe Diem Productions, Inc. And it dissolved for a number of reasons. And to do other little business ventures that we went into, we formed the Tillman Group, which was primarily my husband and his aviation work. And I self-describe myself as one of the world's best wingmen for, the pilot in the group, the real pilot in the group. And but since his passing, that even has become reorganized a bit. And I've been concentrating most recently on the artsy side of me, the creative side. I did write 2 books. One's a little book for primarily for children, that's I Choose Happy, and the other one is called Open a Window, Walk Through a Door. That came about, and the first poem that I wrote, it's a book of poetry and explanations as to why I wrote the particular piece. And the first one I wrote is called At 63. And that was my age when I wrote it. And it was at that point when I realized when you hit about 60 years old, you realize, everyone probably will realize, that there is less time ahead than you've already experienced in your life. And if you're going to do anything with the rest of your life, you need to get started then to do it. And that's what I've tried to do. I haven't quite figured everything out yet, but the writing helps. I started also creating real greeting cards that you can still mail to people. That the price of a first-class postage is getting ridiculous, but I still think that people do enjoy getting something in the mail, a personal piece to read. Not only print cards, but I've even branched out into doing mini video greetings for people.
Sabina, one of the things that Corbin talked about earlier was like the exploitative nature of like California apparently is the mindset or whatever. One of the things that was fabulous about Joan is that, she's basically done her thing for years and years with her husband. Her husband passed away a few years ago. She's still at the tail end of grieving to a certain extent, and that's part of our original conversation. But Joan, in her generosity, and whatever it is that drives Joan, last week we're having a conversation, and she says to me, Bob, do you guys need any equipment? I have all this equipment from all this media stuff I've done with my husband. And I said, Joan, that is so nice of you to ask that. I said, I'm not the one to ask. I said, Alan is the one that would know what he needs, whatever. But just the fact that she did that is more. People in Arizona are really willing to step up and do things. There's not always revenue behind stuff, but it's a mindset of people really being. It's not always like what's in it for me as the first move. I don't know what it is about Arizona. Maybe because everybody's coming here trying to reestablish something.
If you want to survive the desert, it's best to be cooperative with your tribe.
That's a good way to put it.
And that's one of the things I've always tell people when I go out and pick the stories for Arizona Ascent or do a podcast. It's not, yes, the revenue will come. It's not about the transaction. It's about the relationship. And it's about really looking at people and looking at, finding out like what they've been through, what their story is, and really getting to the essence of who they are. Because I always tell everybody, if you don't know what your core values are, you don't know who you are and how you represent, and that's the cornerstone of it. That's how I go through businesses. I go by my core values. So if you don't have that people can see through that. And I think that I think that's so important, is just knowing who you are, who you want to be, and not seeing anything as a transaction, but as a relationship, and everything comes back twofold. And that's how we've always operated with Arizona Ascent. Is like, yes, we're not charging you for a story, but that story needs to be told, and it comes back. And I think that's, the heart of Arizona, that this state is so. What is so great about the state and what I love about it is that you have so many people who want what's best for the community, and how they want to see the state, the state move forward. And throughout this whole journey, I've met so many people who have that passion for the state, and I think, and have the passion for the community here, that they're willing to give the shirts off their back and help others see that, be the next success. It's like that oasis. I moved out here in 2009. And I moved to Yuma, and I was like, oh my God. The only thing I knew about Yuma was the movie The 3:10 to Yuma. And I got recruited to teach. And 6 months, I was like, I want to go back to Kansas. And then I 16 years later, here I am. And in my career is like trajectory, but it's the people that I've met here who've stayed in my orbit, who've been my biggest supporters. And I think that's the essence of everything.
I think you are the spokesman for a lot of people, Ellen included, who take the shirt off their back to make something happen, and you speak the hope in that.
Yeah.
Because it's not always the revenue, and the revenue might not ever come, maybe, but it's just it's the fun and the people you meet and the experience. It's it's a good trade. Corbin, you're smiling like crazy at it, right?
Oh, because there's just so much warmth happening at this table. With the personality color matrix, we try to differentiate between three of the colors, that being green, yellow, and orange, that's associated with warmth. And this is what we're currently talking about. I'll give you the shirt off of my back. We're going to feed into the arts. We want to preserve and be inclusive of these different traditions. The problem is that doing all of that doesn't make anybody any blasted money. And it seems to be this core linchpin in surviving in this duality matrix that we find ourselves incarnating in, right? And so fortunately, we have individuals like Phil that have mastered how to make money in order to do the thing that you love or follow that passion. For me, that there's this caveat with to the warmth that is the strength, or I should say complement as opposed to caveat, because there has to be this foundation of the revenue. The numbers have to math in order for the thing to be sustainable, and it really does become a balancing act. As a creative, I know all too well, right? You know, sometimes I want to just do the thing that is pursuing my passion, but then I also go, I think I need to take on this project to pay rent, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Good idea. Yeah.
There's a great book. It's very interesting. There's a great book by Jim Collins. It's called Good to Great, and there's a chapter in it called the Hedgehog Principle, and the Hedgehog Principle asks the reader to draw. Is it a Venn diagram, right, where you have concentric circles
Yes,
that kind of
something like
converge, right? So the three circles are identify what is your unique ability, which you may or may not know, but the people closest to you can identify for you. And then the second is identify what your passion is. And then the third one is, does your economic engine care? So like, you're talking about, you got to make the money to do the thing that you want to do, right? In a lot of cases, but some people, that's not an issue. Like, you look at my sister, we're very similar. She lives out in the Bay Area. Our unique abilities are we're very social people. Our passion is I think we were raised to help and be of service. And so she has been in nonprofits and social work her entire professional life. She's a graduate of Williams College, was a valedictorian of high school, like a highly accomplished academic. And then I, not so much, but we have the same characteristics. But for me, the difference is my economic engine drives me. So I've always been in a for-profit type of industry or environment. But I think what is a little unique to me is that it now enables me to do the things that I know I love doing, right? Which is the service of others and using my social skills. So interesting. As you were talking, I'm like, this is a chapter out of Good to Great, which you all should read. It's just very, very appropriate for this.
One of the I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's just getting to a point where you can sort of learn from the other thing. I think the beauty of let's say the strength mentality is that there is structure, reliability. The problem with it is that it becomes restrictive and rigid. And there's a certain point where anybody that's of that strength mindedness, they're so great at taking accountability for things, but it really becomes an issue of letting go. And then we have the warmth side where, it's really easy to let go. But when it comes down to that responsibility and that accountability, that becomes the lesson. So it ultimately really is a balancing act. And I like this. I'm going to have to get the recommendation of the book and draw a Venn diagram myself. I like to draw a Venn diagram about every 6 months and figure out where my new niche is.
There we go. Bob, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
I have a question for Joan. You mentioned when you turned 63, which was probably last Tuesday.
Oh, aren't you sweet?
So there's a point in your life where you realize that the track ahead of you is shorter than the track you've just already lived. So I'm 50, and I feel like I'm there, right? It's like I'm at the midway point in my life, and I'm interested to know, as there's chapters in life, I believe, and you're in a certain chapter in life, where I'm going to echo a question, Jennifer, that you had for Sabina. What motivates you? So where are you coming up with these projects to do the literary work? What's the motivating factor behind what you're doing?
The motivating factor, I think, really might have been my husband's death. And it wasn't expected at the time it happened. And I was kind of forced into a situation to having to do something. And maybe to maintain my sanity. I've started doing some of the things I've been doing. It's been an interesting road. It really has. I feel like I'm beyond a lot of it now. And that's why getting together with, and I have to hurry. getting together with this group and this organization and the young reporters is going to be a big step forward for me, because I'm going to get to meet interesting people like the people sitting in this room. And I hope that answers some of your questions.
This is. I just want to thank everybody for showing up today. It's like numbers are always. You never know numbers until when they show up, and it's like this is a really committed group today. I was telling Ellen for the last 2-3 days. I said it's going to be somewhere between 7 and 13, and I never nail it down because you never know until. And today worked out. Like we hit the number right, like 8, 9, or something like that, and it was a great show. And the summary is all you guys gave. It makes me feel so good. You guys are recognizing the warmth in the room and all. The whole goal is if we have a good time in here, it makes for a great show. And if the people out there listening learn something about you guys, get in touch, that's a bonus. But what you guys can do in here, you guys are world changers. I thank you for all coming. We are the older version of the Young Reporters. We had a bunch of people in the studio. Corbin Billings, Sabina Rajasundaram, Jennifer Conrad, Paula Hartley, Phil Kim, Joan Suzette Tillman, and myself, Bob Fishman, and Ellen Repa. I think I covered everybody. Thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate it.